Hello and welcome to another video trying to get you the very top grades. Today I'm making a video for my subscribers really. There's 32,000 of you nearly. I'm really excited by that. Thank you so much for subscribing. And the question I last asked you all was, what should I call my new guide to writing the short story? I have just finished it. The winning vote is the Mr. Salles Guide to Awesome Story Writing. So I'm going to show you what's in the guide without boring you with loads of details. So I've shrunk it down so you can see the contents. So that's one page of contents and that's another page. So the contents go all the way down to there. And that's the good news and also the bad news. So let's just be specific. There are 22 short stories written especially for you in this guide. 22 examples that you can learn from. Now, that's also the bad news, because some of you will be saying, give me a break, Mr. Salles, 22 stories, I only need a couple to show me how to do it. Well, I'm going to take you to a couple of stories that will get you into grades 7, 8, 9, so that you don't have to read the other 22. But obviously, I want you to look at those stories and think, oh, this might be pretty cool. Maybe I'll look at the rest of the guide. But if you don't, that's fine. That's what the videos are for. So the guide opens with the most important technique, the one that's going to give you the top grades, even if you don't read the rest of the guide. It's called the 6 cameras method. And what it means is really simple. You simply take your 6 cameras and you place them around your scene. The first camera starts wide out with a sort of a bird's eye view or a distant view of the scene. Then you zoom in on an image, a motif. An image becomes a motif when you repeat it, when you keep coming back to it. And as you'll see in this structure, camera 2 and camera 4 and camera 6 will keep coming back to that motif. And this will give you a structure that gives you a story. So the ending will be a final way of looking at that motif, which will have changed from when you saw it there. The third time you go in, you zoom in on another detail, probably a person in your story. Then you go back to the motif and see it in a slightly different way. Then you zoom out to that external perspective again. And then finally you come back in for the motif. Now, just following that structure will force you to write a story because it gives you an ending and it stops you having to worry about what comes next. It stops you having to plan. So, to write the story I'm going to show you, I just had an image of a boy and a girl and a mother at an airport, and my class said, oh, Mr. Salles, you're going to have to write about a plane crash. So, right, it's not very original, is it? But I went with the class idea, and this structure I knew would help me. So without thinking, I said, well, how am I going to look at this plane? Oh, I know, I'll look at it from the point of view of a flock of geese who are some distance away from the plane. And then at random I thought, well, what's going to be inside the plane? Oh, I just suddenly saw this guitar. All right, I'll have a guitar in there. I'm going to write about the guitar. Then I'm going to zoom in on a person. Who would be in a plane? Well, I know there's going to be a stewardess, so I'm going to concentrate on her face. Again, I'm not even thinking. My motif, well, it's got to have something to do with the guitar again. Okay, I'll focus in on some music. Then I'll zoom out again. Oh, I don't necessarily have to go to the geese. I could have like God looking down. That would be a really far out, zoomed out perspective. And then I'm going to go in again onto the motif. I'm going to look at the guitar. So this technique works 100% of the time. It's probably best if you don't read it on the screen and you just listen to me read it, but you can read along if you want. The V followed its normal trajectory, the lead swapping as though by telepathy in a strange choreography which had developed over millions of years without planes. Perhaps why the lead bird did not notice the Airbus rising towards it. Perhaps that is why the flock followed blindly, faithful to the goose in front, as the engines rose to meet them like a greeting on a warm summer's day. At the window, Lisa sat, cradling her new guitar. She was 8 years old and going to Nashville to join her father at last. He had given her this red guitar as a present and a promise that he would teach her to play like an angel. Her eyes turned to the window, registering the silent disaster as the birds met the engine on her left-hand side. Something was wrong with this picture, and She thought she heard the guitar begin to play. The stewardess with the blonde hair and the tired eyes, fed up of passengers asking her question after question, trip after trip, felt it first, as though she were a Jedi Knight feeling a disruption in the Force. She smiled, realizing that her boyfriend would be surprised at the Star Wars reference. But something was wrong. This wasn't turbulence. There was a disruption in the Force. In slow motion, the theme tune played. Dum 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 da dum dum da dum. An image of black boots and a black helmet appeared. Instantly she knew the symbol for what it was. She suddenly realised why he was called Darth, a short syllable away from total blackness, eternal blackness, the coming blackness. Bart was playing on his phone again. At 16 he knew better than to have the volume turned up, so that the middle-aged couple next to him could hear his appalling music leaking out of his ears in a slow trickle that had built up to a flood, drowning them both in unexpressed anger as the flight wore on. How the music had droned! The wife saw the geese first, and some part of her brain, the reptilian part she knew, suddenly kicked in. Anger rose in her like fire, no, like petrol thrown onto a fire, and flames of rage, huge and overwhelming, strobed the back of her skull. She turned to the boy, placed one hand on his earphones, and prepared for what she knew was coming. He looked into her eyes and watched her lips move. We don't need no education. We don't need no. But he would never know what she didn't need. Who was it who gazed down silently at the scene? The pilot looked up as though in prayer. He had felt it too, and knew the procedure, the checklist that he and his co-pilot would jump into, the years of training kicking in. But he feared this would not be enough. He looked up, hoping for a sign. Only the clouds gazed back at him. Lisa noticed them too, fluffy like a child's drawing, unreal, but they looked down with indifference. In seconds the entire flock was gone. The engines roared with flame and triumph or rage, it was impossible to tell. The clouds looked on sightlessly, without care. The stewardess turned towards the flash of red. Lisa had lifted her guitar and was taking it out of the case for the very first time. Okay, obviously I'm pretty pleased with that story, but the important thing for you is I didn't plan it. I actually wrote it in the lesson that my students were writing theirs, and I just followed that structure. Of course, the guide won't just give you 22 stories. After each story, it'll tell you what to learn from this story. So here there are 12 things that you could learn from it that will improve your writing dramatically. And of course, what happens over the course of reading 22 of them, or even if you just read 5 or 10, is that you come across these ideas again and again and again. And by seeing them in lots of different examples, I hope you will get a brilliant idea of how to write. You will also notice some bits appear in bold, and these are the bits that count double. So I go to the mark scheme and show you the secrets of the mark scheme, where some things that you do count in both parts of the mark scheme. So the first part, which gives you 24 marks, is what you get for your content and organisation. And there are 10 questions you can ask yourself, which will get you into the top grade there. And the second part of your mark scheme is for technical accuracy, and that gives you another 16 marks. And it's the ones in bold that are going to get you marks in this part of the mark scheme and that part of the mark scheme, the 24 marks. That's why they count double. So you can just freeze the screen and go back and learn from that, or you can take a look at the guide when it comes out. Okay, that one technique that I've shown you is guaranteed, if you practice it, to get you a much higher grade than you're on now. There is another technique which will help students no matter what grade they're on, and this is how to write about a film. So I've got one story in the book which is about a film called Brave. I've translated that into the story of Matilda and Cupid's Arrow. And then another story written by a friend of mine who's an awesome writer. He's written some brilliant books, which I might share on my channel. But anyway, he shared this story, which is from the beginning of Casino Royale. And I'll put both these stories in my next video so you can see how to use film and get a flavour for what my guide can teach you. Yeah, and so some of you are going to say, well, I don't want 22 brilliant short stories to help me get brilliant grades, Mr. Salles. I just want to get by, thank you very much. Well, the videos will be for you, but hopefully, obviously, I want to sell some guides. Some of you will be thinking, wow, that sounds really good. I'll try it out. Give me your comments below if there's something that you want particular help with. I will try and write you a guide for it, obviously. And good luck with your revision. See you soon on my channel.